All right, we're 2 minutes after, so I think we can go ahead and start the meeting. So let's call this meeting to order. And then Miranda, if you want to call for a vote for approval of last meeting's minutes.
Okay, so can we get a vote for approval of the last meeting's minutes? And I don't know, can I motion for approval if I'm calling for a vote?
I second.
Let's just get a motion. Miletus, will you make the motion?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
All right. Miranda.
All right. Yes.
So yeah, okay, my bad. It's been a minute, guys. I kind of forgot how this rolls. So motion has been made and second. All in favor of approving last meeting's minutes, say aye.
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 Any against? All right, meeting's passed. All right, I'll move us on to the next item, which is really the board management issue. So since last time since we talked, Mac and other representatives of the administrator went and talked to the Springdale mayor about trying to stay in the district until the end of the year. And the Springdale mayor agreed to stay in the district until the end of the year. And I want to remind y'all, for Advanced Arkansas PACE, the end of the year is kind of a make or break for being able to move forward as the nonprofit. They need to get some projects under their belt, financing moving, in order for it to be viable. And so the Springdale mayor agreed to stay on during that timeline and see if anything could come to fruition. And we lost a Springdale member, Jennifer Steele, in February, and the Springdale mayor has decided to replace her seat with Katie Hollingshead, who is the Springdale staff liaison until the end of the year. So I checked the bylaws and there's nothing that says they can't do that. So it does work with the bylaws. So unless anybody can find a real objection, legal objection, or wants to bring this up as an issue, we will have Katie sitting on to represent that seat for Springdale. Are there any questions about Springdale staying on till the end of the year, or about Katie filling in that seat until the end of the year? Okay. Okay. Looks like Mac's trying to get back on. Let's see if it's connected to audio. Mac, you on with us? I know you're having some technical trouble with the internet. 1 second, guys. Phone. I'm going to text him real quick. Matt, can you hear us? No. Okay. All right. Well, he's trying to get on as an attendee via the phone, which will take just a second. I'll kind of give you some of his updates and I'll let him elaborate. There is a new lender that has signed on with the administrative district out of Florida. It's called Bayview PACE, and they're an asset management company that has launched a new PACE division. And so they reached out and are also a potential lender. So to date, we have at least 3 potential lenders, out-of-state lenders, who are ready to operate in the district. and are interested in Northwest Arkansas in general. We continue just to be looking for viable projects. And I want to kind of highlight that last conversations we were having, a lot of viable projects were just going along traditional funding routes, largely because of the extra hoops to jump through in PACE financing. And then the interest rates were so low that it was so cheap to borrow money that there was no real incentive to go through a different mechanism. Things are changing in the underlying economics. And so we're a little more than a quarter way through the year. So it's going to be interesting to watch how those economics might bring forward some potential projects. It really does just depend on who's ready to build, do projects here in Fayetteville, Springdale. There's been interest from Jonesboro on setting up a PACE district. Their city council passed a agreement to set up a PACE district, and they've communicated with Advance Arkansas PACE about that process. I don't have any other information about that. A next update from the administrator, I don't have any further details, but he was saying that there was a South Fayetteville apartment complex that is interested in doing the project. Here he is, allowed to talk. All right. So.
Chris, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
My apologies.
No problem. We've all been through the technical problems a couple of years now, so I'm glad it worked out this way.
Well, I guess it's better than COVID, so I'll take it.
Yeah. Max, so I was just giving them a quick update. So I let them know that y'all had the new lender, Bayview PACE, a little bit about the Jonesboro district's interest. And then I just was mentioning there's interest in a South Fayetteville apartment complex. Would you like to elaborate on any of those points?
Well, yes, I'd like to speak to South Fayetteville. The fellow that owns the apartment building has some other properties too, and they had to evacuate all his tenants. So he's busy right now. We have recommended to him an auditor, which would be one of the next steps to take our spitballing back of the envelope calculations and really find out what's there. It looks like it's a viable project. It's about 40,000 square foot. It's a 7-building complex on MLK. So optimistic, but he's got to get through some other issues before he can address that.
Okay.
Also on Bayview, one of the things that they're interested in, and this would be a matter for the board, is how far back can they reach for an existing property? In other words, somebody's built their building, they found out about the program, they come and say, hey, I've did a lot of efficiency measures which are above and beyond code, and I'm interested to see if I could get some financing. So that's a little bit out of the spirit of an intention of what's happening, of what's intended to improve building stock, because the building would already be there. But it has been done in the past in other jurisdictions where they've reached back 6 months or a year to allow people to qualify. Don't have that as a specific issue, but they were asking in general. So just wanted to put that issue in front of you all as something that might come up in the future.
Questions, comments from the board?
So you mean like if improvements were done to a building and then they seek financing after those improvements have already been done?
That's correct.
Okay, interesting.
That's correct. Two aspects. One, it didn't bring on new construction, but the other piece of that is then verifying the improvements becomes a lot more straightforward. So they have some general interest, so there's not a specific action required. But wanted to let you know that that's a possibility.
And Matt, do you know if there's any specific time frame in the Arkansas law limiting how far back?
I don't believe there is. I think that's really up to the board. That's part of the local administration of the program.
Okay.
I would think that anything over a year would be, would be to be avoided. But that's something we can research.
Jonathan, you look like you want to say something.
That brings up a lot of interesting ideas for that. I know historically PACE was only used for existing construction. You're talking about looking back a year for projects that may have just completed and trying to include that somehow into the PACE financing.
That's correct. And PACE has also been used in Arkansas for new construction.
Oh, really? Okay.
Tag on, yeah.
With any of these new lenders, are they having a minimum of how, I guess, expensive the project is? I know one of the big issues we've always had is floating around that 200, 300,000 mark. Are these new lenders interested in like not going for such big, huge 7 apartment complex, efficiency redos, and maybe something like towards that middle range, not like small private, but just I still feel like that's kind of a bread and butter thing that we could work on.
Yeah, I understand. It's certainly been the issue. Actually, the $250,000 is still as a minimum, and it's one. We've got 2 lenders now who will look at projects in that range.
Okay.
They can't afford to go smaller because of the juice isn't worth the squeeze, I guess would be the way to look at it.
Yeah.
Is anyone pro being able to capture a project completed within the last year?
I think it's a good idea if we really want to try to make something possible. And there might be a person who just didn't realize PACE was out there and sits there regretting it. Like, oh, I would have started this process if I had known earlier I'm halfway through or I'm complete. I would love to be able to be a part of this.
Well, I guess my question towards that is, what are we trying to include into the financing portion of that? I mean, are there going to be specific criteria that they need to meet for it? Because a lot of these projects are already doing code. Any of them that you'd be talking about now. So are we talking about anything that's above and beyond code? Because that's kind of where we've done with some of the, like with SWEPCO, for instance, is that the code would require 50% LEDs to be put in a house. And so we got them to incentivize the other 50% of it. So as long as the builder did what they were supposed to do, then they could get rebates for that. I'm just wondering how that would specifically be structured on something like that. Because I've got a number of projects that are quite complete yet, but I don't know what we would try to include with that.
And Matt,
Well, I think that,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, yeah, it would have to be well above code. It would be that differential that would be financed and have a documented and analyzed payback. So, and it would be the standard list. It could be HVAC, it could be water appliances, low flush and low flow. So it would be anything that we would look at for an existing.
So what you might be trying to capture is those projects that, might be not meeting their budget for whatever reason, and maybe installing, 14 SEER air conditioners out there, heat pumps, and you caught them just in time before they ordered them, and got them to upgrade those. Something along those lines. I'm just having a hard time trying to figure out what you could do retroactively to a project that has just been completed.
It would depend on how it had been constructed. If it had been done well, so it was more efficient than code, then it might qualify.
Okay.
Yeah, so if some reason they saw that this was a better financial option for them and they'd already finished the project and it showed energy savings with a positive cash flow over the term, so it pinned out, then legally, if we decided to take that project on, we could.
That's right. I think that's exactly how SWEPCO got away with it too. So that makes sense.
Any other thoughts on this 1 year sort of retroactive capturing of projects or any other time frame?
I take it we would have to go kind of like beating the bushes to try to find projects that would fall in this range, which has kind of been like the story of a lot of what we've been trying to do is finding projects, whether it's new construction.
I don't think it's a question of whether we're trying to find them or not, whether we as a board would find it acceptable to take on a project that was completed and could fit the guidelines of this PACE program, but has already been completed.
I think it would be, and unless anyone disagrees, I don't see why it wouldn't be acceptable. I mean, hopefully, if anything, it would generate more interest,
I agree. I think it would allow us to cast a wider net. And if we were able to get a project, I think it would be acceptable for us to do something like that. Like you said, within a certain time frame. I don't know what that time frame is.
Got to the end of the year.
Mac, is it hard to go back and just deal with the energy calculations shouldn't be hard, correct? We can capture all those within a time frame. My question more centers around the financials and the transition of the lending and all that process. Is there any familiarity with transitioning the financials into a PACE program once it's completed?
I don't have any, haven't been through that process before. Certainly the whoever held the mortgage would be right in the middle of all of that. We do require notice and cooperation there.
Have you heard anything from Steve on his thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's absolutely. He and I have talked about this, and that's where the year sort of comes into play. And I think, especially since we love to have a project to help generate more interest, might improve flexibility. And of course, the lender has to be on board, and as you mentioned, has to demonstrate positive cash flow.
Any other thoughts, considerations, complaints?
Well, I guess I have
No
a question.
complaints. Go ahead.
So is the PACE financing currently available for new construction projects as well? I kind of took this as a retroactive deal.
Yeah, PACE for new construction has been done in Arkansas before, and it's fine.
Okay.
It would need to have all the calculations and energy models and all that to bear it out.
Sure.
Joe?
So, I mean, I like the idea of us opening this up so that we're able to get a little bit of momentum, get a project on the books, recognize or I guess reward investments that have already been made in efficiency. But I'm also like, we're trying to get to additional here. I mean, the whole point is to try to move the ball forward. So I'm wondering if there's something that we could do, like as part of this, we could say, yeah, we'll retroactively support this project, but maybe in the terms of support, I wonder if the PACE district could say, include some language that says, we ask that the recipient evaluate, reassess investments made to date and make a good effort to identify additional efficiency opportunities to potentially make this project bigger or something like that, just to put something in there that gets them thinking about how we could do more with this support. Would that be something that folks think would be reasonable, valuable? Maybe not, I don't know.
It's a good point. I just worry that I always feel like this is a hard sell because the issue that we run into is the property owner doesn't want to deal with the type of financing that PACE offers on their property for future sales. You know, it's one of those questions is like, do we start adding in so much other stuff on there that we scare people away? Mm-hmm. I mean, the reason I'm open to this idea is I would like to see a project happen. I feel like we're kind of working on borrowed time, and you know, if we can't even go with I don't even think it's a backward move; it's a lateral move that we're doing with this 1 year, just to see. Because if we get someone who does it and they are excited about it, then hopefully we can leverage that somehow into getting some type of buzz. You know, maybe an article written about it, you know, and Talk Business Points or, you know, Arkansas Democratic Gazette, you know, that opens the eyes. But I mean, right now, the 2 years I've been on this, 2 years, actually, maybe even longer now, I can't remember, you know, we've kind of found people interested. And then as they start getting into the mechanics of it, they're like, it's not my thing, you know?
Mac, you said it was the lender that was asking this question?
Yeah,
Okay.
It was Bayview, the new folks.
And does that mean if they brought forward projects, they would be bringing forward the projects and kind of helping move through the financial process and taking care of all the details?
Well, they and the owner would have to work through the details of, it's not an audit at that point because it's a new building, looking at the energy models, the Sears on the AC and all that to make sure it would pencil out. But yeah, he brought it up as a general question. He also asked about new construction. Said, yeah, you bet. Mm-hmm. So.
And do you have a recommendation as the administrator?
Do I have? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
As the administrator, would you think it preferable for the board to open up for retroactive projects within a 1 year time frame?
I think I would say yes on a case by case basis, but I agree with the comment that we need to move the ball forward, and rewarding people for things they've already done doesn't necessarily do that. However, we are on borrowed time, and if we could get a project that was, you know, that worked out like that, I'd say go for it. The lender is certainly going, you know, it's their deal. If they didn't like it, they wouldn't bring it to us or wouldn't approve it if we brought it to them.
Okay. So
it's really a big board preference.
So what I'm hearing from the board is an openness with some maybe interest in trying to incentivize further stuff, but not a solid no on anything at this point. Is that where everybody's at? Yeah. Okay. Mac, do you think that we can just give them an informal response and saying we're open to stuff on a case-by-case basis? And then we don't need to make a vote at this time, and we can address this issue if it comes forward further?
That's correct. That is how I would approach this.
Okay, are you, as the board, okay with an informal expression of openness to Bayview?
Yeah. Should we make a motion on something like that?
Sure, we can vote on that informal and let them know. Feels good to make, we'll vote on something. All right, Miranda, you're up.
Okay, so I get to call for a vote again?
Yeah, you need to call for a motion.
All right, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we vote.
And we are for an informal expression of openness.
Yes, for an informal expression of openness. Wow, that's.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, I want that written down, that informal expression of an openness.
I got it.
We're gonna send that via city memo. All
I
right,
didn't mean to make it quite this tough on you, Chris. But I would go back to Bayview to let them know
yeah,
the board's with. Thank you.
yeah, the general sense is we want to see a project come through, and if it looks like a good deal, I don't think there's a reason for us to be close to that. Anything to talk about on Jonesboro?
I know that Steve talked to them, and I have not caught up with him since. So that was a couple of weeks ago. I've talked to him since. That's not right. We just didn't talk about it. So I think he told them about the experience here in Little Rock.
Okay. Any other updates from you, Mac?
No, there's one project floating around that we talked about last year that might be able to come back with solar projects for Highlands.
Okay.
They're actually, I think SWEPCO just went for 7% with the Public Service Commission. So that's raised a lot of interest. And just for your all general information, 35% of Arkansas's electricity is generated from natural gas. So as the price of gas goes, the price of electricity will too. And that all seems to be looking up, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's all I've got, Chris.
Thank you. I'm going to move it over to member activities. Jonathan, you were talking briefly about a potential project. Would you talk to the board about that a little bit, however you can?
Sure. John Fitzhugh. I have actually been in discussions with the owners of a historic building in downtown Fayetteville. It's actually being used as a restaurant currently. And I've looked through, I looked at the attic and the walls and stuff like that, and there's just zero insulation anywhere. I mean, it's a historic building. They have seemed open to the idea of it, at least. I did get some information from Mac earlier this week on kind of the minimum that the lender would want. Honestly, I think we're probably approaching that if they just replace the windows in the place easily. So anything above and beyond that would kind of be even better. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering what the next steps for that are, because I mean, they can put it in a formal application. I guess we need to get with an energy modeler at that point to figure out where the pre and post are for it. I just haven't been through this process before.
Well, we've got a couple of folks on the website at Advance Arkansas Pays who are local engineers who specialize in energy conservation.
Yeah, and I'm well aware of at least one of those.
So
And John-
I think the next step is to nail down the numbers.
Okay.
Jonathan, are they familiar with how the PACE financing works with that going on their property tax?
Sure. So we haven't had a chance to fully discuss any of that yet. They're just open to the idea. They want to save, and there's a lot of opportunities there for it. So it seems like it'd be an easy payback on that and pretty quick, I would imagine, depending upon how far they want to go with it. So that's kind of my next steps, is getting in front of them and trying to figure out, what their appetite is for it, how much they want to kind of take on with that. And then figuring out where we fit into it as well.
Right. So I guess you and Mac will be in discussions, huh?
Correct. Yeah, we'll be in talks about that.
Great.
Okay. Are there any other board member updates? Okay. Well, I see our next PACE meeting for September 12th. So we'll continue to do this remotely since we're having such short meetings. I think this is probably in best interest of everybody's time. If you have any questions or updates before then, you can reach out to me or Mac. And there's nothing else anybody has for comments. Okay. Well, let's close out this meeting. Miranda, your official voice would be much appreciated. Just close us out.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
I don't think we need to vote. Just let them know you said it.
Adjourned.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time on this Monday after Mother's Day. Y'all have a lovely week.